How's it going, everybody? The Bills traveled to Miami and got their first win of the 2021 season. We got to talk about it. Hope you stay tuned as we recap the Bills' first victory of the season tonight. Here we go. What's going on, everybody? I hope you've all had a wonderful evening. I've got the usual suspects joining me tonight as we're here to recap the Bills' victory over the Miami Dolphins, 35-0 as they blank their division rivals. The usual suspects, Travis Blakesley. Travis, how you doing tonight, man?
Great, man. It was a great game. It was really fun to see the defense come out and play. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Jeremy, it's always a pleasure to go live with you, man. How's it going?
I mean, it's good as after a win. Last week was kind of somber and sour, and that the all Bills fans were ready to get the pitchforks and burn the team up. And today we're all happy again. Good.
Yeah, it really seemed like that Bills defense beat the sour taste out of their mouth and took it out on the Miami Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa and the whole offense of the Miami Dolphins. It didn't seem like they could get anything going. Let's start with that. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball. They're playing fast, playing physical. I really liked what I saw at the line of scrimmage and at the third level of the defense on the back end from the secondary. Jeremy, what were your thoughts on the overall look of this Bills defense and how aggressive they look today?
I mean, I think they just look super physical. I mean, I can't remember a Bills defense that has looked this physical. And it's a nastiness with it. And I know we talked about this a couple years ago, even when we were ranked in the top 5, that the defense didn't have a chip on their shoulder. There wasn't a lot of nastiness that came with it. But now, I mean, they're hitting. I mean, they're hitting everything in sight. Anything that moving is a target. And they're just destroying people. I mean, look at Tua. Tua went on a cart today. I can't remember the last time the Bills put on a cart. And I don't like to see anybody get hurt. I'm not advocating anything like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, business is business. And these guys are handling it.
Yeah, absolutely. Really physical day for the Bills defense. We all hope that Tua Tagovailoa and his injury, that he'll be all right in the coming weeks. Travis, what were your thoughts on the Bills defense today? How they were aggressive, how they were attacking the Miami Dolphins offense. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, the two words that come to mind is aggressive and physical. They're coming downhill. It doesn't matter what level of the defense we're speaking about. Defensive backs, defensive linemen, linebackers, everyone in between. They were physical. They were. It feels like they were challenging these receivers. When Moss says, "I want defenders to make a business decision when they come to play," I felt like the defense as a whole was doing that. Everything was clean. These guys are reacting rather than thinking. We spoke about that on Edmonds last week. Matt Milano is a monster. He's all over the field. I love the way he was coming off the edges. Like you brought up earlier, the way that they're all playing real close to the line of scrimmage. You don't know who's coming from what direction, who's dropping. I think on one of Russo's sacks, he dropped back into coverage and he left his assignment to pick up Brissett, I think his second sack. So it's just great to see multiple looks. And again, the ferocity, the aggressiveness, they're really playing free. So this is what we sorely lacked last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. That mantra of the defense being able to play fast and play physical, and that really comes when a defense is able to play confidently. And one player that this is really I can attribute to that we talked about it in the chat during the game about how Teron Johnson seems to have really taken a step forward. Last week you could say what you will about a few lapses in coverage, but I had mentioned on the show that he had a really good game in comparison to how he looked in seasons past last year. Jeremy, how about you touch on how Teron Johnson played today and what your overall thoughts are of just the overall improvements he's made from one year to the next?
Yeah, I think that, I have to give him credit because I've been one of the biggest Teron Johnson detractors. I'm not afraid to admit that. Even after the 2 epic interceptions last season, which I think mystified a lot of Bills fans about what his coverage really was and what his level of play really was. Yeah, he's really turned it on this year. You can see a very confident player, a guy that knows what he's doing, understands what he's doing, and he's doing the best of his abilities. And I think Sean McDermott touched on in the offseason was one of the biggest things about Teron was taking care of his health and actually being available to play. And it seems like he's in the best physical shape or form of his career so far. So, I mean, those hits that he's delivering seem like he's going to be able to withstand the grunt and stay on the field this year.
Yeah, a sack and a forced fumble today for Teron Johnson. He was flying all over the field, making plays. Travis, what were your thoughts on the Bills' nickel corner?
I mean, he had another great performance last week. You mentioned that a couple lapses in coverage. Even those were kind of the ball placement got the better of him. But today, I mean, 4 tackles, like you mentioned, a sack, tackle for loss, 2 pass defended, another QB hit. He's filling in this nickel role the way that it needs to be filled. And I believe it was all 3 of us on a pod earlier in the offseason where I mentioned I didn't think that the next year's nickel corner will be on the team. Well, that may still be the case because we may not be able to afford to keep this guy if he continues at the rate he's been playing this year. It's great. It's great to see because for such a little guy to bring that mentality and to back it up, he's not missing tackles. He's very aggressive, and let's hope he can keep it up because I think the nickel is the linchpin of this defense.
I tend to agree. And, Teron Johnson's always been known for his aggression. And that's something that's been apparent ever since the first time he took the field for Buffalo. It's always just been a matter of not necessarily how good of a player he was when he's playing forward, but more so how good of a player is he when he's dropping back and how are his instincts in coverage. And, Sean McDermott went as far to say in his post-game press conference that Teron's really grown up in this system. He's learned this system, and he has become really just everything they look for in a nickel corner in this system. And he's one of those players that over the course of the offseason was noted as if the Bills' defense is going to improve to the way it needs to in order for this team to be a Super Bowl contender, then Teron Johnson is one of the players that must improve coming into this season. And to see the fact that he is quite alleviating for this defense as this is 2 consecutive performances for this defense that look really good. And one particular area that they looked really good in was up front on that line of scrimmage. The Bills' defensive line last year, they would get beat up. They would get pushed around. Teams could do what they wanted in the run game. And that would really just kind of open things up for opposing offenses and make things difficult on the back end. But now you're really seeing this front get pushed. You're really seeing them collapse the pocket, not only from the interior, but also from the edges. Let's talk about rookie defensive end Greg Rousseau getting 2 sacks today. Travis, how did you feel about the rookie's performance? And also, James Mallory predicted that he'd get 2 sacks today. And he had a great game today. What were your thoughts?
Well, shout out to James. The guy knows what he's talking about clearly. I thought he continues, speaking on Greg Rousseau, I think he's continuing to evolve as a player. You're really being able to see what he brings to the table in a multi-dimensional aspect. Obviously, we saw him break down his defensive or his offensive tackle and crush that pocket. But then we see him double back and make some tackles for losses. We see him drop into coverage and, like I said earlier, create a sack where, he's kind of ad-libbing. It's great to see his maturity And that's something I didn't expect to see at all. I thought we'd see a deer in headlights. I thought we'd see a guy who may need to grow into his body, but it's clear that he is somebody who's going to get substantial run time and somebody who's just going to continue to be just a mainstay in this defense.
Jeremy, we've talked about Greg Rousseau potentially not being a project for this defense, and getting a start in his first 2 games, also getting a bulk load of the snaps at the defensive end rotation. I think it's quite indicative that this guy isn't a project, but quite potentially a franchise defensive end that this team's been looking for. What are your thoughts on how he played today?
I don't think it's far-fetched at all. I mean, the only knock on Greg Rousseau that people had was that he's a 1-year wonder in college, which, I mean, half your first round picks are 1-year wonders, so that doesn't make any sense. The second part of that is that he had deficiencies in college. And as I talked to James Mallory more, we've said this on a past show, one of the things that he did in his year off at college or his year he opted out was he worked with former Falcons All-Pro defensive end Chuck Smith and fixed some deficiencies. So he had an entire season to fix things and work on things that he had to fix, his flaws. Now, mind you, he did come to Miami as a wide receiver and not defensive end, so the athleticism was automatically there. I just think that people saw the pick and they hear project from guys like Mel Kiper and Adam Schefter, and they just take it and run with it. And we expected this guy to sit on the bench, and maybe I did too. To a point, I thought maybe we wouldn't see Greg Rousseau to the second half of the season. I actually thought Carlos Basham would be the one getting these snaps and reps right now, as he was more pro ready. But obviously, we're wrong. It's a reason that Greg Rousseau went in the first round, and there's obviously a reason that Carlos Basham went in the second round. I just think that maybe we underestimated Rousseau, but as we said before, you can't teach being 6'7", 270 pounds with the wingspan of like 8 foot. That's something you can't teach. Those traits are unimaginable. And we have seen people like that in the past in Buffalo, as like Ryan Denny, Chris Kelsey. And these guys were solid football players, but none of these guys had the athleticism that Greg Rousseau has. So it shouldn't surprise us at all. And the fact that he's rotating and having to learn, having the ability to learn behind Mario Addison and veteran Jerry Hughes. I mean, I can't wait to see what the second half brings when he gets more games under his belt. I mean, it's going to be scary.
It's one thing when we talk about players who come into situations where they have the ability to learn, like you just kind of alluded to, where he's behind veterans like Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison. It's another thing when you see these players be opportunistic with the opportunity to learn. Players, one good example on the offensive side of the ball for the Bills is Gabe Davis last year, coming in behind 3 really good wide receivers and being able to be opportunistic and take the time to really kind of refine his route running, really kind of, just become a more well-rounded wide receiver than the one they had drafted in the 5th round. Now you look at a player like Greg Rousseau, you kind of see the fruits of his labor coming to fruition in the early part of the season, much earlier than a lot of people had anticipated. And, it really opens the door for a lot of optimism as to what his NFL career could really amount to. And another player that made, a return today to the Bills defensive line, and it was quite a return, was Star Lotulelei. And this is a player that we've always talked about on this show, and whether we're bad-mouthing him or whether we're questioning him and his job or his role, he played his role mightily today. Jeremy, what were your thoughts on the Bills returning one technique defensive tackle today?
He returned. It was nice to see him out there. That's all I have to say about Star Lotulelei. Give me a couple weeks to warm up to him, man. Listen, just give me a couple weeks, okay? It was nice to see the big man out there. Good for his return. Good. I mean, they weren't running the ball much. Just give me a couple weeks on this.
All right. We'll let you evaluate the film. Travis, how did you feel Star Lotulelei played his role today in stopping the Bill, or really kind of just plugging gaps against the Miami Dolphins offensive line?
Whoa. Look at his stats chart. He's got 1 tackle, okay? And it was a solo tackle. The man showed up on the stat sheet. But for real, yeah, I mean, it was hard to tell because we were dominant stopping the run last week, so we didn't necessarily miss him. But what I did notice, and that won't show up on the stat sheet, is I saw a lot of penetration from him. There was one play specifically where I could have sworn it was Ed Oliver, because I saw in actuality, Ed Oliver get double teamed and kind of stonewalled, and Star Lotulelei was 3 to 4 yards in the backfield blowing things up. So you can never have enough depth on the defensive line. And we are somewhat thin going into the season in defensive tackles. So guys, having guys like him around, clearly he means a lot to the team. He means a lot to Ed Oliver and the rest of the defensive line. But, like Jeremy said, let's pump the brakes a bit before we crown him.
But I will give him credit on one thing I did see. I forgot, I don't know if it was Gaskin or somebody down the field caught something in the flats, and he actually chased the play down.
Yeah, he tossed him.
Yeah, he got right into his pursuit angle. I was quite impressed with what Star Lotulelei had brought to that defensive line, and I thought he really made the matchups he opened up the matchups on the defensive line the way he's really kind of meant to for that front, and just the presence of him and what he poses for an offensive line. It was quite indicative today as the Bills really kind of dominated at the line of scrimmage, which led to the 6 sacks, which led to this secondary having a really good day covering these receivers. Really nowhere to go for this Miami Dolphins offense. I understand they were without their starting quarterback for pretty much every series aside from the first 2. And that really kind of just derailed their plan, if you will. But Jacoby Brissett is certainly a capable quarterback. I thought that Jacoby Brissett was going to come in there and they were going to be, I wouldn't say competitive, but they were going to be able to move the ball. They were going to be able to do the things that this offense tries to do. But the Bills' defense was not allowing it today. Overall, Jeremy, how did you feel about this Bills defense? Do you feel like this is just the beginning of what could be a Super Bowl caliber defense in your mind? Muted.
You mute.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry. Yeah, almost certainly. I think this was the defense that we were waiting to see last year. And obviously with COVID and different things of that and lack of practice, lack of players, that didn't happen. So I think that this is the year that we can see that. I mean, Matt Milano just got an extension. Tremaine Edmonds is playing for extension. Tre'Davious White has an extension. Jordan Poyer just got an extension. So yeah, I mean, we're paying people to play, and we have premium picks all across that defensive line and Oliver Epinesa, Rosu, and you're still paying Jerry, you're still playing Mario. So yeah, I think this is the year that we see it, and I think this is the year that we're supposed to see it because a lot of money is allocated to that defense. And yeah, shout out to my guy right there, Levi Wallace, who I thought played another solid football game. I'm going to look for injury update as we go further in the show to see if we got anything on him. But yeah, I totally agree. I think everybody's playing at a high level. Everybody's playing physical. Everybody's playing fast, and they're confident. And they're not looking to bend but don't break. They're looking to break the other team.
Yeah, and that is a big difference from the defense we've grown used to watching. As far as the injuries are concerned, as Jeremy had mentioned, there's really been nothing solid on Levi Wallace or Tremaine Edmonds for that matter. Tremaine Edmonds didn't finish the game today. He really came out after the first half due to cramping. And, in the post-game report, it was said that both players had sustained cramping, and there was no real kind of specification as far as injury aside from that. Travis, what are your overall thoughts on this defense? Do you think this defense could be what the Bills kind of like they can use as a tool to get them to the Super Bowl? Is that the potential that we're really seeing?
Absolutely. A lot of people talk about what is the Bills' plan B? What is their off-speed pitch, so to speak? And I think it is the defense. Should we run the ball more? Can we run the ball more? Of course. But I think in those tough games going against, and this obviously wasn't, but going against the top-tier opponents, if we need to lean on our defense, this is showing to be a defense that can be leaned on. And I know it's a defense, a lot of these guys want that. The veterans on this defense, specifically in the secondary, they held the team together in 2017. They were the rock of the team, and they haven't forgotten that. So I think, they took a year off last year for whatever reason. It just wasn't clicking. Now the main thing for me is just staying healthy. If they can stay healthy and they continue to mix up their coverages and what they're showing, I think absolutely this is a team that could affect games and ultimately win you a Super Bowl.
I tend to agree. I've been nothing aside from impressed from what the Bills defense has shown us thus far in comparison. In comparison to last season, they've really improved in the areas they need to. They can control the line of scrimmage. If you can control the line of scrimmage, I'm really excited for what this defense can do because that's exactly what the defense is predicated on: being able to get pressure with the front four, being able to get in order to help the back end. It's been nothing aside from impressive these first 2 weeks, and hopefully it's just the signs of what's to come for this Bills defense. Let's switch things to the offensive side of the ball. It was a little shaky today. It was a little rocky. The Bills forced a couple turnovers on the defensive side of the ball, and the Bills' offense weren't really opportunistic with it. But aside from that, they still won the game 35-0. Jeremy, what were your thoughts on the Bills' offense and the rhythm of this game and how they were able to perform?
I still felt like there was a lack of rhythm in the play calling. I still feel like Brian Daboll had a hard time getting this offense into a groove and finding his groove as a play caller today. And it seems like, I know a lot of people are saying that Josh Allen, they felt like Josh Allen was reverting back to 2019, which I really want to hear that. Not yet. Give it a little bit of time. But I feel like Brian Daboll's reverting back to 2019. I think that he was pretty much forced to run the ball by Sean McDermott today. I think that this was a meeting they had this week about actually focus on the run. And I think they paid big dividends for it. I think he found a little bit more balance between run pass, but at the end of the day, I'm still not feeling the rhythm. He's not finding the mismatches. You know what I mean? Like you as a play caller, you need to be able to find that mismatch of getting Stephon Diggs from not being matched up with Xavier Howard on the outside. You need to find that mismatch with Emmanuel Sanders matched up against the linebackers. And I don't feel like we're doing that. I think he's feeling like we can just come out like we did last year, spread out full wides, and everything's going to part like the Red Sea. I don't think that's the case. People have film on that now. So I just think that I still think that we had trouble finding rhythm. And that's the worrisome part to me. Because when we have trouble finding rhythm, I have trouble finding Brian Daboll.
Yeah, rhythm is such an important thing for this Bills offense, or any offense for that matter, and especially for the Bills quarterback, Josh Allen. It's important to get his confidence going at the start of the day, get this offense a rhythm, and get everybody just a feel for the game and kind of alleviate, the start of the game jitters or what have you. Travis, what were your overall thoughts on the Bills' performance today on the offensive side of the ball?
I mean, clearly it was good enough to get the victory, but as Jeremy alluded to, they seemed a little out of sync. It's early in the season. They didn't play much in the preseason at all. Whether that factors in will remain to be seen. But what I think the biggest thing is this is a offensive system that clearly came out of left field and dominated last year. Now, from week to week, you have 5 days or so to get ready, prepare, watch film for the upcoming opponent. This time around, the entire league had the whole offseason. So when you come on the map and you make yourself known, and this is what we're going to do, we don't care how you line up. If you want us to run the ball, we're still going to throw it. When you invite that, defensive coordinators are going to meet that challenge. And I think that's what's happening. And, when those reports about throwing something in last minute on Saturdays, I think that's very indicative of this, because I think they're starting to realize that they have to do more than just show up at this point. Teams are kind of onto what they're doing, as Jeremy mentioned, and it's going to be the classic cat and mouse or chess game, what have you, because we're going to have to figure out different ways to win each week. And like people said in the chat, the stat line is not MVP caliber. But that being said, we were all touting this guy to be MVP, and we forget about the Jets game last year. We forget about the Tennessee game last year. We forget about a handful of games where Josh Allen was not very good. So could it be the same thing happening just earlier on this season? I hope so. But either way, there's still work to be done, and it's good to know that when your offense doesn't pull out a great performance, you're still winning 35-0.
Yeah. At the end of the day, they still did good enough to win this game. But, just talking about the overall rhythm and just in general, the offensive coordinator for the Bills, there were some parallels that couldn't be drawn from last week for me for just the overall performance of Josh Allen and the Bills offense. Last week, Josh Allen had pressure in his face all game. For 4 quarters, from the first snap to the last snap, he had the opposing team in his face. This game, that wasn't really the case. That wasn't always the case. It would happen periodically, but it wasn't. He had time back there to make decisions and make plays. And it just he didn't look like he wasn't comfortable. He looked comfortable right from the get. It seemed like him composing himself was certainly a focal point in practice this week, or it was emphasized to him that he needed to come into this game looking and feeling comfortable in order for this Bills offense to do what they need to do to win. And he looked comfortable, but still things just weren't adding up for this offense. They were creating turnovers on the defensive side of the ball, and the Bills were opportunistic for those turnovers. They couldn't get things going and get the chains moving. And, when you go back and you watch this game, Jeremy had mentioned and alluded to the fact that, there was a little more balance in this game today. But the one common thing, whenever there is balance in a Brian Daboll game plan, that, I can remember talking about this going back to 2019. Whenever there is balance, there is not synergy. And in order to have synergy on the offensive side of the ball, you need to know how to work the running game and the passing game entwined with one another in order to play them off of one another. And it just seemed like it wasn't like that today. It'd be run, pass, run, pass, and it's just there wasn't really any kind of rhythm. There wasn't any emphasis in one direction for the offense. And I feel like that's really where the Bills offense struggles and where they kind of come into these issues and these ruts where they can't get points on the board for a certain period of time. And, that is where I feel like they start to advert to their 2019 ways. That's where I feel that, this offense starts to look more so like it did in 2019, where more so the coaching and the game planning is what plays a part in the Bills being unable to put points on the board and unable to keep the ball moving. The one thing that I was really happy with today was the focal point on the running game, was them, if you will, forcing them to run the ball, because it worked. This offensive line looked comfortable. They looked to be in the zone when they were run blocking, and it boded well for both of the Bills running backs. Travis, tell me what your thoughts were on the Bills running back tandem of Devin Singletary and Zach Moss today, and what they were able to do with the ball in their hands.
I thought it definitely was a big step in the right direction. I just wonder if we didn't come out to that early lead, would we have seen something different? Now, we'll never know, but that's something that always kind of stuck in the back of my head. I believe they were effective, but there's still room to grow, because you subtract that big run by Devin Singletary and the numbers don't look that great. But I do agree that in this situation, this scenario, to lean on the run game more is something that was needed. It was something that would be advisable for most coaches. And to see, I think you hit a good point where you said that it just doesn't seem like the scripting of the plays, whether it's run, or pass. I think that needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I think sometimes it gets a little bit too predictable. But specifically on Moss, I finally saw him live up to his quote about guys making business decisions. There was a number of runs where he brought the heat, and that dude has a low center of gravity, and he smacked some guys, stayed balanced, and was able to continue to move the ball, whether it's into the end zone or gain extra yards. So that was great to see, even after facing the adversity that he did. And his tweet goes to show this guy's going through stuff, and that's life, peaks and valleys, man.
Yeah. Jeremy, why don't you touch on how you felt about the Bills rushing attack today? This is really the first time this season in the second game that we've seen them make it a focal point and have it be efficient and effective against the team. How did you feel about the Bills rushing attack today and how it was incorporated in the offense?
Yeah, I felt good about it. And before I actually start, I actually want you guys to do me a favor. Last year we had a thing where we have you put a grade for the offense and defense in the chat. So go ahead and in the chat, if you're watching, and put a grade for Brian Daboll's offense today, anywhere from A to F there. But yeah, so I felt like running the ball has been such an underrated value to this team that we don't use enough. I've been pounding the table for Devin Singletary, and I've been a Devin Singletary truther for God knows, I feel like 2 or 3 years now. I feel that if we choose to run the ball more, it'll open our passing game up even more. And I know that sounds crazy, because every game we come out, we feel like we're going to throw the ball 50 times. Well, if we surprise teams, we run it, and we run it with balance, it'll open up those shots. It'll open up those crossing routes, because like I said, teams have film on that now. We drafted Devin Singletary in the 3rd round. We drafted Zach Moss in the 3rd round. We have them both on rookie contracts. let's please get the most of the value out of rookie deals that we can before we have to at some point possibly have to allocate a premium pick or money to that position. And yes, Devin Singletary looked great today. He looked just like he does rookie year. Actually, he looked a lot faster because on that long run, I thought he was going to get caught. And I think last year or the year before his rookie year, he would have gotten caught. He didn't. He definitely put the work in. And yes, you're exactly right, Travis. Zach Moss looked like a business decision type of guy today. Outside of the one fumble that he had, he was fine. Like I said, I think this is a guy that's still getting back into game shape too. You realize, he spent most of the summer rehabbing that ankle. So it's going to take him a little bit of time to get back into game shape, because there's being in shape, then there's game shape. I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to get to that point. But I'm actually happy that Sean McDermott, after he fumbled the ball, had the confidence to put him back in there and say, hey, get back in there. Let's get the ball some more. Let's get some work. Now, that was a very good coaching decision, in my opinion. And I think you'll reap the benefits of that later down the line.
Yeah, that was really important to me, too. The fact that he put him, because if you remember that they were really giving Devin Singletary the workload on the first 2 series of the game. And for the 3rd series, Zach Moss, his first touch of the game, or maybe it was his 2nd touch. You could correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. He had fumbled after he had caught the ball. And that's huge for a young running back, and getting his confidence and getting him being able to get him back on track so he's a viable option for the rushing attack going forward. I thought it was a really good plan today on the ground specifically. I thought that it really does wonders for the offensive line. And I kind of alluded to this last week when I talked about this isn't an offensive line that I feel like you can just send out there and drop them back. That they need to be able to go forward and lean on some people and get people moving in order to get into a rhythm, get some confidence, and get a feel for the game and a flow going, if you will. And right after that 46-yard touchdown run, it seemed to be that was apparent and really helped this offensive line get their feet under them, get a feel for the game, and it also it impacts that defense, just like Jeremy had alluded to. It forces that front to not necessarily pin their ears back and come chasing after Josh Allen, and makes them have to stay on their heels a little bit. It makes them read and react a little bit more. You can't just not run the ball in this league. You have to be able to run the ball, and today was nothing but a positive sign in that facet. One player that I wanted to talk about had a touchdown catch today was Dawson Knox, and this player, he kind of went unnoticed last week, and I thought he had a pretty good performance against the Steelers, and it went unnoticed in a loss. Travis, what would you have to say about Dawson Knox and just what you've seen from him so far? Because I've heard nothing about Dawson Knox aside from how he's not a viable option and how he shouldn't be the first tight end and how he shouldn't even be on the offense, or they shouldn't use him or what have you because he can't catch the ball. I've seen this guy catch everything that's thrown his way thus far this season. What do you think about Dawson Knox and the growth that he has made coming into 2021?
Well, I'll start off saying I was never one to run the guy out of town. I understood that this is a kid who hardly, he didn't have a touchdown in college. He's an ex-quarterback. Tight ends are notorious for taking long times to develop. And I thought that the idea of him being the tight end version of Josh Allen, raw, not a lot of production in college, but has the tools. He's a guy that I'm willing to wait it out and develop in a position that is let's face it, it's basically an afterthought in this offense. So to get a guy who's going to get a couple targets a game, obviously you want them to hold on to it. I really disliked seeing all camp long, anytime this guy got a drop, it was like, oh, by the way, Dawson Knox has a drop. He has a drop. It was the worst drop I've seen. Great. We get it. Let's wait till game day, the regular season games, and see what he's got. And up until now, like you said, he's been on the money. He's been everything we could ask for out of a tight end. And clearly him and Josh have a good relationship. So, I'm sure when he has that first drop, we're going to hear a collective sigh, and you better not check your Twitter. But all in all, I mean, I'm totally fine with Dawson Knox. I don't want to spend all that money on a tight end when we got a kid there that can make all the plays. He just needs to develop a bit.
And see, the thing that you can say about Dawson Knox is a lot of the same as what you can say about the Bills' rushing attack, because the Bills do have 4 really viable options at wide receiver. If the tight end is able to contribute to the offense and able to be an option and just something that a defense has to account for, that does wonders for the Bills' passing attack. Jeremy, you've talked about in the past how, Dawson Knox just has had an opportunity just to not really have to have a bulk of the target load, not have to be relied upon in the pass, and just able to not necessarily blend in the back, but it allows him to develop. Do you think this is the season that we're going to see Dawson Knox really kind of come to a culmination, if you will?
I mean, when you say the word culmination, it really means, to me, depends on how much of a culmination you're looking for. This has been a position at Bills tight end when everybody was banging the table for Zach Ertz or OJ Howard or David Njoku, which I like David Njoku, or these different position players, and drafted one in the first round or second round, like fire him or something like that. The position itself is only going to get like 60 targets. Like, yeah, Josh is going to throw the ball for 500 times a year in a year, but that position is only going to get like 60, 70 receptions as a total, if that. And they may not even get 100 targets. So it's not a position that's high priority. But I would like to see Brian Daboll find the mismatch with Dawson Knox and use his athleticism. He did a really good job of it his first 2 seasons. Last year, I thought he kind of fell off with it. His rookie season, he found the mismatches for him. This year, he's not doing it so much. I think this is a guy when, our passing game is struggling, we can find this guy's a mismatch against some linebackers, finds a mismatch against some safety. We've seen him make tough catches. It's the easy catches he dropped that we go crazy about, but the tough catches he seems to make. So I would love to see him incorporated in the offense just a little bit more here. But as far as him moving forward, like I said, Dawson Knox is another player and another constant overreaction by Bills Mafia. I hear all the time this person, and you can group him in there with Levi Wallace if you like.
Yeah.
Yes, you can upgrade at tight end. You can upgrade at every position. Hell, if you want to, we can upgrade at quarterback. We can upgrade a head coach. We can upgrade a general manager. It doesn't work that way. Everything's not going to be all pro at the top or the best of the best. It's about forming a roster that works. Dawson Knox, salary-wise, athleticism-wise, and scheme-wise, fits with this team and within this offense. And if you want to talk about an underrated factor of Dawson Knox, his chop block is one of the blocks that sprung that 46-yard run by Devin Singletary to the house. So we don't talk about that, about Dawson. We don't talk about any of the good things that he does or he brings to the table. So I think that this is a guy that we should get to the game plan a little bit more.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I like the traits that he shows, just the athleticism and what he's able to do if you can get the ball in his hands. He's an aggressive carrier of the football. And that's something I just like. You get the ball to Dawson Knox in the flats, he's going to try and truck 2 or 3 guys to get to that first down marker, whether he's running out of bounds for 6 yards or not. That's just who Dawson Knox is, and that's why I've never really, I wouldn't say I don't understand people's frustration. I see where they're coming from, but I think they're being a bit hyperbolic with just overall the overcritical analysis of Dawson Knox's game. It's just, I wouldn't say it's not that much of a vital role in this Bills offense, but it's certainly not as important as a lot of people try and make it out to be. In one area, we do have a helmet to give away. There's one thing that the broadcast that mentioned today, the last time the Bills had blown out the Miami Dolphins in the fashion that they did today. And I want somebody in the chat to tell us what year it was the last time the Bills had blown out the Dolphins as bad as they did today. I'll wait a few minutes. The first person who gets it in there right will be in contact with you.
It was right. Well, no, I'm not even going to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. So everybody who's watching live, you can answer, because I want to give everybody a shot. You can answer live. And everybody who's at the end of this, and Evan, you're with Cold Front, you are not eligible. So you know that. Everybody who answer this live, I'm going to take your names down at the end of the conclusion of the show, and I'm going to put it in a randomized raffle. And yes, this is a autograph Gabe Davis. Obviously, this is a military service replica helmet, mini helmet signed by Gabe Davis. Here's the JSA approval for it as well. There's gifted to us by buffaloautographs.com. So make sure you get over there and check them out. And there's a Facebook page. They give away a lot of stuff over there. So we got a couple goodies we'll be giving away. So yeah, if you can answer it live, and somebody's gonna win this. Bills win. We're all happy. We're not burning down the city. So I like to give things away. We have to be charitable.
In the mood of giving. One thing I wanted to talk about the offense before we kind of start to wrap things up here is I wanted to get how you guys felt about the offensive line, because last week it was such a topic of discussion as to how detrimental it was to the Bills' offensive game plan, and just that was why they lost last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It felt like, and today I felt like it was an improved attack, but there's still room for improvement. That is for sure. Travis, how did you feel about the Bills' offensive line? Did they perform well in both pass pro and run blocking? How was their performance today in general?
Well, obviously, overall, it was much improved. You can't really get much worse. And the only thing than the previous week, and we actually saw worse, and that was Miami this week. But yeah, as a whole, I think adding in much more running helped a lot of these guys, the Cody Fords, although I thought Cody Ford played adequate last week. Certainly John Feliciano, he had a handful of good run blocks. I still think that there are some communication breakdowns where I thought a lot of the pressure came from. We were definitely much more stout in our one-on-ones, and also with guys chipping or, double teaming certain players. That being said, it was a step down in competition, but also they're no slouches. I don't think they're on the same level as the Steelers, but there are certainly a handful of guys on the Miami defense that can rush the passer. So overall, it was much improved. And, in the chat last week, we were talking, is this an offensive line that can get you to the Super Bowl? And that was a serious question last week. I think this week it makes me feel a lot better because our offense can actually operate with the performance that they all delivered as a unit.
Yeah. Jeremy, how did you feel about the Bills' offensive line?
I mean, it looked a little bit better today than it did week one. Obviously, like I said, Travis spoke on and they spoke on in the broadcast today. They are not the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm still not comfortable. And when you say you ask the question, is this a Super Bowl caliber offensive line? Can this offensive line get you Super Bowl? At this point, I'm going to say no right now. I'm going to say no. But there's some things that I look at for me to say, okay, it's going to get better and possibly yes down the line. Obviously, we know Deion Dawkins, his battle with COVID, him trying to get that key word again, game shape. He looked a lot better today than he did last week. He like a guy who just stepped back on the field, trying to catch his win. Cody Ford looked a lot better today. I actually like the fact that, and I don't know how many people caught this, but Feliciano was actually playing left guard with Cody Ford at right guard again. Remember last year where they were trying to pin Cody Ford between Deion Dawkins and Mitch Moore. So it seems like, and obviously our long run came to the left side too. So it seems as they're going, hey, we're going to go left side of the line is going to be our strong side, especially running the football. And I think that helped a lot. But Daryl Williams is not as solid as he looked last year. And I think that when you look at his contract and the amount of guaranteed money that the Bills did or did not give him, if you want to talk about that in the years, maybe they weren't fully sold. So maybe at some point you do see Spencer Brown get involved a little bit more in here. I know I noticed during this game that during the big package to run the football, they were bringing Tommy Sweeney in and bringing in Spencer Brown as a tackle eligible tight end. So it's some wrinkles, but I think it's going to get better as long as Ms. Morris doesn't get that. I don't know what seems like 1,000th concussion. Well, I think we'll be solid because I think that's the one guy on the offensive line that at this point with the struggles we cannot afford to lose.
No, they cannot afford to lose Mitch Morse. It's been talked about how they struggled with communications last week, and I think if they were to lose Mitch Morse, it's nothing but detrimental to the communication up front, as he plays a huge part in making sure everybody knows their assignments and making sure everybody is where they're supposed to be. And you kind of touched on Deion Dawkins. You touched on how his battle back from COVID. And it struggles. I struggle with that sometimes, keeping things in perspective with the fact that, he is a human being. He went through having COVID-19, and it was towards the end of the preseason. It was just a couple weeks ago. And the fact is that he's not in game shape, and that does play a critical factor. And, if he can find he didn't have the holding penalties this week like he did last week, but he was playing Emmanuel Ogbah and Van Ginkel in comparison to Melvin Ingram and TJ Watt. So it looked better. It looked adequate today, but hopefully next week, as they go up against a better front in Washington, we can see more signs of growth as that defense is going to be coming after you. They do have the studs that, comparable to the Steelers, but not comparable to the Miami Dolphins. I'm interested to see how this offensive line can really kind of perform against the front of that caliber. And, in weeks' time, we'll really find out how much they were able to grow from that Pittsburgh Steelers loss. I'm really intrigued to see how they can improve along the interior as well. That's really where their weakness lies with John Feliciano and Cody Ford. And like you mentioned, Jeremy, and I mentioned something in the chat earlier today too, that, maybe they want to move Feliciano back to the right side and flip Cody Ford back to the left side between those two. And maybe that's the recipe. Maybe that's how they have the best five in the best five positions as well. And that can play a vital role in the Bills' offensive line, really kind of refining their footing as they really needed to after last week's performance.
Well, my thinking on that is that they're saying in the past, it seemed like they tried to create the most balanced offensive line they could, right? Trying to put Cody Ford, which was the weak link between Mitch Morse and Dan Dawkins, which was two strongest linemen at the time, were going to kind of save him, you know what I mean? Kind of shelter him a little bit, hide him a bit, if you want to call it that, and put Feliciano on the right side between Morse and next to Darrell Williams. You're putting two veterans that can work together. Now I think they're saying pretty much screw that. We're going to put John Feliciano, who's your best blocking guard, between your best run blocking tackle and your center, who's your leader of your offensive line, and we're just going to power to run the left side of the field, and we'll figure out the right later. And hopefully they can pass block. I think that's absolutely the right thing to do, because when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs did, they went and got Joe Thuney and they put him a left guard. You went and drafted a center. Okay, cool. Creed Humphrey's going to be solid. And you also went and got Orlando Brown Jr. We're going to put him on the left side as well. And I think that's the proper way to do that. Oh, and by the way, right now I'm actually putting the names in a random organizer. So in about 5 minutes here, I'll actually have the winner of that. This Gabe Davis mini helmet.
The powers of the internet, folks. The powers of the internet. Yeah. If the Bills are going to win a Super Bowl this year, improvement on the offensive line, I think at this point in time is the thing that we all need to see the most. Aside from, this offense working its kinks out and really just kind of getting that start of the season, lack of rhythm, if you will, because it's not just the Bills, folks. And when we say that the Bills offense is lacking the rhythm that we have seen in the past, when we say it looks like they're out of sync, they're not the only team in the league. In the first 2 weeks of the season this far, this is the first season without a fourth preseason game ever. So this is certainly going to play a factor for every team in the league. And if you watch all the games, if you see how all the teams are performing, it looks like some teams are out of sync. It looks like a lot of teams are out of sync. And this is a problem that not just the Bills are having, but a lot of teams are having. So that could alleviate some of your concern, if you will. Going into next week, Travis, what are your really overall thoughts coming out of this game after a 35-0 win over a divisional opponent like this?
I guess what I took out of this game was that our defense is going to play a big part in the success of our team, unlike last year. But also looking forward, what we need to see is for us to take care of business the next 2 weeks, because we have a couple softballs. Washington is a formidable opponent, but let's be honest, this is a team we should beat. And then Houston, which I believe they lost Taylor. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you got two winnable games, both at home, and we really need to figure out what is going to work against Kansas City, who shows up the week after, and then we have a good matchup with Tennessee. So I think we really need to figure things out on the offensive side of the ball, and then just continue with what we've seen on defense. Keep being aggressive, keep playing downhill.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Jeremy, what are your thoughts of this team coming out of their first win of the year after against a divisional opponent like this? Looking forward, they're playing, like Travis mentioned, they're playing Washington and they're playing Houston. What are your thoughts coming into next week facing up against a defense such as the Washington football team has?
As far as the defense side of the ball, I'm very satisfied. I'm loving what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the confidence. I'm seeing execution. I'm seeing crisp execution. As my high school coach used to, Coach Willie Burnett, Turner Care High School in Buffalo, used to say about being crisp and having execution. And I'm seeing that from the defense. I'm seeing aggressiveness. I'm seeing In years past, I always harp on that stupid PFF stat that I hate about pressures that Jerry Hughes used to get, where he'd run around, the quarterback could step in the pocket in the gap, the lane that he left, and throw the ball for easy 10 times a game for completion. But it was great because it was a pressure. Well, I'm loving the fact that Epinesa, Rosu, and these guys are literally shoving the lineman back into the quarterback's face. So not only do you not have a passing lane, you have nowhere to run, you have nowhere to move, and we're truly collapsing the pocket. There, you have nothing. And I'm loving that. And you see, because of that, you see a more aggressive and a more assertive Tremaine Edmonds and also Matt Milano. And you're allowing Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer to run around and do what they do. I'm loving that. But on the offensive side of the ball, I still have a lot of questions. And I would not mind, and I do not want Josh Allen to get, as I call it, to get Baker Mayfield, where we lose confidence to a point where we're just going to power run the football with 2 running backs 40 times in the game and say, hey, well, some points in the game we'll put the ball in hands. We don't need to do that. But until we get this passing game set, until we get Josh Allen locked in with Emmanuel Sanders, until we get him back connect with Stephon Diggs, and it seemed like they got that going in the second half of this game, and Cole Beasley to get involved when he's not talking about something COVID related, then yeah, I would love to see us run the ball a little bit more. Just at that point. But I think other than that, I mean, I'm loving it. I just think that I still have a lot of questions on offense. I think that playing Washington this week, we're gonna have to ask a lot of questions. That's a strong defensive front. But it's also a shaky offense with a quarterback who's starting the second game to going against our defense, who's been lights out in 2 games. So I think this game's going to answer a lot of questions for us.
Yeah, I tend to agree with both of you. Facing up against Redskins, that kind of plays into the Bills' weakness at this point in time, like we've been talking about these last 2 weeks, about the offensive line and really the issues that they're having on the interior up front. It's going to be a gut check game. It's going to be time for that offense to really kind of, you're either going to improve from where you started this year or you're not. And, if they can't, then that's going to be really that's going to be catastrophic to this season if that offensive line can't grow from where they started. And I'm not saying that if they lose that, I'm not saying it's a must-win game. It's a game they should win. This game is
a must-win. I'm not even
I'm not saying it's not a must-win, but they should win it. They shouldn't. If they lose that game, that is bad. That has horrible implications on this team. They should not lose to the Washington football team by any means. Aren't they starting Taylor Heineke?
Well, they don't have to. Fitzpatrick is out for pretty much the season. So this is every game up until you get to that Bucks game. I'm sorry, to that after the Chiefs. Who's our big first game that comes up on the schedule here? Hold on, I'll look at the schedule.
It's the Chiefs week 5 after Houston.
Yeah, every game up until that game is a must-win. Every single one.
I'm not expecting them to lose. That's all. I wanted to clarify the fact that I have no inkling of expectation that they should lose. And if they do lose, every Bills fan should be pissed, and rightfully so, because there's no excuse for them to lose to a team like the Redskins, like the Washington football team. I did it. And there's no excuse for them to lose to a team like the Texans. And yeah, no, not here. I understand. My bad. But we're going to find things out about this football team next week. This is a resilient football team, and they know the team that they're going to be facing up against. They know the matchups they're going to be facing up against, and they know their deficiencies that they have had in the past. They are very self-aware. So I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do to improve, or if they're going to improve. It's going to be an important week this upcoming, going up against the Washington football team. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. The giveaway.
I got a winner. I got a winner. Okay, I hit this button 10 times.
Do we get a drum roll?
I got water on this thing. I don't want to go on my computer, but I can add a little mini one for you. The winner of the helmet is Jake Holton. Jake Holton. Hultin. Holton. I hope I didn't butcher your name. But yeah, you answered it correctly, and 10 other people answered correctly too. And you just won this Gabe Davis service helmet. So I'll contact you after the show, get your address, and get it mailed out to you. Congratulations, man. That's from BuffaloAutographs.com. So make sure you get over to their Facebook page of Buffalo Autographs. Ryan Hickman, those guys over there doing good things.
Absolutely. Guys, parting words. where can the people find you, Travis? I'll start with you. Where can people find you? What do they have to look forward to? I know you have the Friday night forecast. Can you touch on that for us a little bit?
Yeah, you can find me at Trav Blakesley on Twitter, but every Friday at 8:30, me and my guys, we break down matchups, predictions, forecasts. We like to get the commenters involved too. So tune in, drop your comments, your takes, and we'll break it down prior to each and every game.
Absolutely. Jeremy, can you tell people what you have going on? You're a man of many things. You always have 100 things going on. They can find you pretty much anywhere, always active. What's going on, man?
Yeah, so you guys catch me Tuesday on my normal show now. If you guys have not caught it, be live here Tuesday at 9:30 on It's Nothing Personal, Just Bills. That's my own syndicate there. And we'll see what panel. I usually come with a panel. We'll see what panel I have on this week. I got to get idea who I'm going to have. We'll see what happens. We break down maybe some of the more controversial things. It may not always be as nice or friendly, but hey, it's nothing personal. That's what the name of the show is. If you guys are not following Moss Mode Show, please go on all your social media platforms and follow Moss Mode Show. That is Zach Moss's personal podcast page, and I am actually a producer on that. Zach is working with Zach is great. He's going to have a lot of good guests this year. You already had Josh Allen. If you guys did not catch this first episode release with the Josh Allen episode, you guys missed a lot of tidbits where they talked about their high school life, their college life. Josh lets you in a lot of stuff, so please make sure you get on it. That is powered by Avalon Sports. So shout out to Diver and those guys out there. And we got some things coming up. I'm not going to let out the bag yet, but we got some things coming. We'll be appearing in Buffalo again, so I'll be taking a vacation trip, business trip.
It's never a vacation. It's always business. Be sure to follow the Coldfront Report on Instagram, Twitter, and like our Facebook page. As you can see in the bottom right corner, at Coldfront Report _Bills News on Instagram, at Coldfront Report on Twitter, and Coldfront Report Buffalo Bills on Facebook. If you'd like to follow me, it's at CFR Clayton on Twitter. And hey, I hope everybody enjoyed the show. It was a good game. It's good for the Bills to really find their footing and beat their frustrations out on the Dolphins. It's always fun to watch. It is always fun to watch Brian Flores lose to Sean McDermott because I've never – it's just it's worse like clockwork. Twice a year, just boom, just beat the Dolphins. It show's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and go Bills.
Go Bills.